end up getting COVID and all that I went through? It was back in May. It was like May. Okay, so it started out the end of April. My 19-year-old son, my 21-year-old son, he actually works for a fast food restaurant. So, one day he come home, he was feeling terrible. Like, he was feeling bad. All he could do was just lay in the bed. So, right off bat, COVID had just started, like in March. So, this was like April. So, I was like, you need to go to the doctor because, you know what I'm saying, COVID is real. And so he ended up going to the doctor. I ended up going with him. But at the time, COVID had just come out. And they was not letting nobody in the doctor's office but the patient. And if you're an adult, could nobody go in with you? Only a minor, the parents of a minor could go in. So my 21-year-old, he ended up getting tested. He got tested for strep, COVID, and flu. They were able to give him his flu and strep results right then, and it was negative. So he had to wait on his COVID. So that was on a Monday. So they end up just sending him home, and we had to wait on his results. So at the time, everybody in my home had to quarantine until he got his results back. So he got his results back on, I think, a Tuesday or a Wednesday. And it came back negative. So he didn't have COVID. But my 19-year-old son, he ended up getting sick. He started feeling bad that Tuesday. It was either that Tuesday or that Wednesday. My 19-year-old started feeling bad. So my 19-year-old, it's like pulling teeth to get him to go to the doctor. So it was Tuesday or Wednesday. He wouldn't go to the doctor. He's like, he'll be okay. He just finna drink him some that Dr. Selby tea. So that's what he did. And he said he was feeling fine. But if you know my 19-year-old, you know, he could be sick and he's not feeling fine. He'll tell you he's feeling fine for a minute if he ain't that bad. So anyway, so Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, he was feeling bad, but yet and still, he was still up moving around. So, that Sunday night, he started feeling bad. He said that he couldn't breathe. Anybody know me know I don't play about fever or breathing. This was a Sunday, so earlier that day, I started feeling bad. Like, my body was aching, but I'm anemic. And so, sometimes when I be in cold air or, you know, something like that, or I wash my hair and I be in front of a fan, my body will ache. So, that's what I'm thinking, not thinking nothing else. So, me and my 19-year-old went to Starkville, and when we got back, I just said, okay, I'm just going to take me a NyQuil and I'm just going to lay down. So I laid down. I got up this was about 2 or 3. I laid down. So I got up about 8 o'clock. My 19-year-old started saying, man, I can't breathe. You know, when my 19-year-old started complaining, it's serious. So, I was still feeling bad. So I had my 21-year-old to take my 19-year-old to the ER. So, they went to the ER, So they went to the ER and they ended up testing my 19-year-old for flu, strep, and COVID. They gave him his flu and strep test like they did my 21-year-old right then, and he had to wait on his COVID results. They said 24 to 48 hours before the test come back. So he got home about 10 or 11. I started running a fever. It was about 12. My 11:30 or 12. I started running a fever. So I gets up. I goes to the ER. They do the same thing to me. They run a strep, COVID, and flu test. My strep and flu was negative. So, but I was running a fever. So they end up giving me Motrin to get my fever down. And then they sent me home. So I go home. My fever breaks. I go home. I'm still not feeling good. So I go home, still not feeling good, but my fever broke. I was okay. So Monday, this Monday, I wake up. It was about 11 o'clock. They called and gave my son his test results. he was positive for COVID. Okay, so I'm like, okay, well, I went hours after my son, so hopefully they'll call me by this evening with my test results. So 3 o'clock, I still haven't got a call. So I called them. They said my test results hadn't came. So at this time, COVID was like the beginning, so they was having, when my son, it was like a nurse calling, they was texting to check up on my son, but because I'm his parent, or I don't know, but they was calling my phone. And the first couple of days, I was able to talk to them because I wasn't as bad sick. So they was checking up on him. They end up giving him a inhaler, and I think he had some other type of medicine. But anyway, he would never use the inhaler. So I'm still waiting on my test results. Didn't get them. Here it is, Wednesday. I called every day, no results. So this weekend, that weekend, I'm sick. I'm in the bed. That weekend come, my 14-year-old starts feeling bad. So my 14-year-old feeling bad. He ended up going to the emergency. He ended up going to the doctor. It was a Sunday or a Saturday. He ended up going to the doctor. They end up giving my son, my 14-year-old, the same test they gave us. Flu, strep, and COVID. Flu, strep, negative. We're waiting on his COVID test results. My son gets his COVID test results the next day. Mind you, it's a new week. I still haven't got my test results. So, when my son got his test results, I ended up going to the doctor office because it was taking the ER so long and I was getting worse. So I go to the doctor office. They do the same thing, test me, and I had to wait on their test results. So, still haven't got any results. And I'm negative on flu and negative on strep. No COVID results. That Monday is when everything started going downhill. So, it was at one point, I still hadn't got no test results. I couldn't hardly breathe. So I go back to the emergency room. That was that Monday before I got admitted. I go back to the emergency room and they was like, they had a respiratory tent, and I can go there and, or whatever. So at this time, they was going to lunch or something. It was going to be after 12:30. I could not sit up. I could not sit out there. I couldn't sit in the car. So I just went back home, got into bed. I got up to take a bath. The first time I got up to take a bath, because when I run fever, and my body aches, I just sit in hot water. I don't know. So when I got out the tub, I could not breathe. I couldn't even put on my clothes. So I jumped in my bed, cut both fans on, and I felt a little better. So after that, I got up and I put on my clothes. So this is Monday night. Like I said, when I run fever, I take a bath. I had took like 3 baths that day. So the last bath that I took, it was about 10, 11, maybe 11 or 12. It was late. I got out the tub. I could not breathe. For a long time, y'all, for a week, I was only go to my bedroom to my bathroom, the bathroom. I couldn't go no further. I couldn't breathe. And then I had fever. So, and I wasn't eating. My son, my 19-year-old, he started feeling better. So he was fixing me tea, like the garlic tea and stuff, because it made him feel better. So he was giving it to me, but I couldn't drink it. So, and I love garlic. And so that night, my 21-year-old, mind you, his room was across from the bathroom, and he ended up texting me. Just, weeks ago, I had already told my kids, I don't like going to the emergency room. And I told them, if I tell y'all I need to go to the emergency room, rush me to the emergency room because it's an emergency, because it's nothing else that I could do. Anyway, so my son, he texted me. He said, you need to go back to the emergency room. If I take you, or if you don't want me to take you, I will call the ambulance, but you're going to have to go back. So I did not want to go because I was scared to get in the car. I couldn't breathe. So I was scared to get my son. At that time, he had his Ford Focus, and it's small, and I couldn't breathe. So I was scared that I wasn't going to be able to breathe in his car. So I got enough strength up. I put on some clothes. Yeah, I don't even think I was matching. It didn't matter at this point. So I end up going. My son ended up taking me to the emergency. So I get to the emergency room. Anybody that knows me knows I hate help. I like to do everything on my own. I couldn't get out my son's car. So they end up getting a wheelchair, coming to get me and rolling me into the emergency room. I couldn't fill out no paperwork. So my son, he did all of that. He did everything for me. So they took me on in the back. They checked my temperature. They did everything. And then they put me in the room. And so later on, they come in. They was like, we need to do I want to say an MRI or something. It's when they put you in that little machine. They send you through this machine. They did that. They took me back to my room, the emergency room. And the doctor come in and said, well, we're going to have to admit you into the hospital. And before they actually took me to my room, they did another COVID test. So at this point, I had already taken 2 tests. I have not got results from neither test. It took a week, it seems like. But I had not got a result from either test. So I told the doctor that. And he was like, well, we got your results from last week and you tested negative. Okay. So they end up doing another test. And that right before they took me to admitted me into the hospital, they did another COVID test. So they did that, and then they put me in the room. So come to find out, I had double pneumonia in I had pneumonia in both lungs, which is double pneumonia. So I was admitted on a Tuesday, early Tuesday morning. That's when I was admitted. So once they got me in the room, well, I had already told my son he could go home because they was going to admit me and they was not going to let him in. And so my son went on home, and then I notified my mom and my sister and them. I think I sent them a text. I didn't even call them because it was so late. It was like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. So I just sent them a text, and I think I ended up talking to them the next day. I can't remember. But anyway, so I was in the hospital all that Tuesday and all that Wednesday. Come Thursday, I can't actually remember a lot, but I can remember them saying they had to send me. I wasn't getting any better, and that they had to send me to Columbus Hospital. In order for me to get better, I had to be transferred to a different hospital because there was nothing else that Louisville could do for me. So before they actually transported me to Columbus, they had already intubated me because my breathing was getting worse and worse. I couldn't really just breathe on my own. So, let's take it back. So when I was admitted into the hospital, mind you, they told me right before I was admitted that they got my test results back from the week ago. I was negative. Okay, so I went to the doctor and they did a COVID test. They told me that I was actually already in the hospital. They called my cell phone, I answered, and they was like, we got your test results, and it come back, your test results was inconclusive. I never heard of that. But I was like, oh, okay. They said, but we're going to treat it like you have COVID. I said, well, it's too late. I'm already in the hospital anyway. So I got they told me those results. Now I'm in the hospital. Now everybody want to give me my results. And like I said, they had already gave me another test before I was admitted. And they had already called my mom. I think I was already in Columbus or on my way to Columbus. And they had called my mom and told my mom that I tested positive for COVID. So my first positive test came after I was in the hospital, and I was actually on my way to Columbus. Okay, so when I got to Columbus, I was in bad shape, y'all. I was terrible. I couldn't breathe. Basically, I was on a ventilator. So, y'all, okay, so when I get to Columbus, I'm really out of it. I really Y'all, I didn't even know I was in Columbus until it was, okay, I went to Columbus May 14th, which was a day before my grandmother's birthday. And I didn't realize I was in Columbus until June. It was like 2 days before I was getting ready to be transported to Jackson. That's how, because they had me on medication. They actually had to put me to sleep because, I don't know, they had to put me in a medical induced coma, just, I guess because of, I don't know. I really don't. And y'all, it was terrible. It was very terrible. And the hardest part was me not being around my kids. Well, my family. So I'm just going to stop right there with the story. I'm going to continue. There's more. I mean, there's 2-3 months more stories. But, yeah, I went through so much. And with COVID, it messes with my anxiety now. And I just wanted to share a piece of this story just to let you guys know, even though they say wear your mask, you don't have to wear your mask anyway. Keep doing what you was doing. These people don't care. I'm gonna tell you, when I was in the hospital, they did not know how to care for a COVID patient. We were basically like experimenting. They was experimenting on us. They didn't know what to expect. They really didn't. And I shared my story because I want people to realize this right here. A lot of people play with COVID, but when you're in the hospital and you can't see your kids, you can't see your family, you're around complete strangers, that's a bad feeling. People, they say people hype COVID up too much. No, they don't. No, they don't. Because when you've been put in that situation, it's a hurting feeling. And you don't know if you're going to live or if you're going to die. You just don't know. And, it was hurting because, y'all, I was away from my kids for 3 to 4 months. That was hard. Didn't know what my kids were going through, how they were feeling. I'm going to share my story. And if there is anybody out there that's dealing with COVID now or have a family member dealing with COVID, I don't mind answering any questions that I can help you with. Like I said, there's still a lot that I'm learning, but I can only just tell you bits and pieces of what I experienced, but I'm forever grateful. And if there's anything that I could do, I'm willing to do it. So with that being said, I want to thank everyone that watched my story and stay tuned for more.